Wildman or Bigfoot? Yes, today we are investigating sightings of wildmen in the frontier forests of the United States going back into the 1800s. And you better believe, Wildman and Bigfoot, they may just be one and the same. Welcome to Wild Blue.
Aliens are among us. There's no doubt about it.
Hey y'all, what's going on? It's a great day here at Wild Blue. So looking into the alleged wildman sightings, Bigfoot, he really didn't become popular until about 1958. Both Bigfoot and Sasquatch were adopted later on to describe these sort of creatures roaming about the forests, even though these sightings predate the popularization of the Bigfoot we know and love today by about 150 years at least, looking at the accounts of Western settlers in the United States. You look at Native American legends, this Sasquatch goes back for many years before even Western settlers showed up here in the country. The settlers in America, they had their own term to describe what we would know today as a Bigfoot, and that was the wild man. In Europe there's a figure known as the wild man, and he's a mythological figure we could go into detail on in a later video, but many people believe that this wild man from the European ancestry is kind of how the nomenclature for what people observed here in the United States in the early days. They brought this term with them to describe these creatures that they observed in the frontier as they were settling the country. These so-called wildman sightings going back into the early 1800s. Now these wild men exhibited some fairly strange characteristics. They were oftentimes very large, 6.5 to 7 feet or even more. They had fur all over their bodies many times and long matted fur on the top of their heads as hair. And they were described as being incredibly strong and aggressive and usually lacking the ability to speak in an intelligible way to the people they encountered. So I pulled a number of these sightings from old newspaper clippings out of the 1800s, and we're going to look into them here and see what sort of conclusions we can draw from all these sightings. So let's get on into the first one here. So here's one from 1886 that describes a wild man being killed. It was reported in newspapers at the time, and it goes like this. An affrighted Frenchman from over the line has his fellow's town all by the ears with the story of a gigantic wild man killed a week or so ago in the dense woods above Moosehead. The Frenchman's story, which is implicitly believed, is that 3 men were camping out in the woods about 100 miles north of Moosehead Lake. 2 of the campers were away from the camp for a week and came back to find the dead body of their companion. They went for help and reinforced with a dozen others searched the woods for the unknown murderer. It proved to be a terrible wild man, 10 feet tall with arms 7 feet in length and covered in long brown hair. The party fired several shots into him and finally succeeded in reaching the final spot, laying the monster low. So here we got a sighting that meets all the criteria of a modern day Bigfoot. He's 10 feet tall and covered in hair. Unfortunately, they didn't preserve the body of this story, so there's no way of verifying whether or not it's true. And without cameras at time to take pictures of this guy, you just can't make any conclusions other than that there's this story of this creature out there. And we got a news article here from 1871. Talks about a 7-foot tall creature with a matted mess of hair that was incredibly strong. This one was said to approach women and creep around houses only to run away after being spotted. Now this one right here from the Memphis Inquirer from 1851 describes a sighting in Greene County, Arkansas. A cattle driver by the name of Mr. Hamilton realized he was being followed by a large human-like creature, but it wasn't no human. It was real large and covered in hair from head to toe, and it took off once it realized these guys had spotted it. Apparently Mr. Hamilton and whoever was with him observed this creature making a jump of 12 to 14 feet. and they went and measured its footprints afterwards and accounted them as being 13 inches long, which, that's pretty good size, but Shaq's feet are about 16 inches long, so it ain't out of the realm of possibility that this is just a guy covered in furs and with really long hair that can jump an abnormally long distance, Maybe it is just an actual wild man out there living in the forest observing people as they're moving their cattle across the land. Next up, we got this article from Naugatuck, Connecticut, June 29th, 1898. Now this one had 4 witnesses, and it involves a story of them encountering this real big guy, and apparently he could talk. They were traveling on a path to the next town when this guy jumps out of the forest and very large. He asked how far it was to the next town, then he took off into the forest after he received his answer. This freaked them out, so they went back the next day to investigate what they had seen. And what they found was a footprint measuring 18 inches long. They went and asked people from the nearby town if anyone else had seen this thing, and other people had described seeing a guy that was about 9 freaking feet tall walking around the forest. They estimated he probably weighed 500 pounds. Now this story is real interesting. Just the fact that you got this supposed Sasquatch-like creature actually talking to people rather than just communicating through grunts and howls and stuff like that. I don't know if I've ever seen a Bigfoot story that involved a creature like this interacting with humans in such a way. Very strange. Maybe this is why they call them tall tales, because you got these people that may just be very large on a normal scale being exaggerated to being into unhuman proportions of, upwards of 8 to 9 feet tall. Or maybe the 4 guys who saw him were just kind of short, I don't know. And we got another one here from North Carolina, January of 1878. This guy was apparently out prospecting with a few of his friends when they saw a creature standing off in the woods about 100 feet away from him. And the creature was just watching him. It was estimated to be about 6 feet 5 inches tall, with broad shoulders and long apish arms, a smooth face and a funnel-shaped head, whatever that means. Maybe it's referencing like a cone-shaped head that a lot of Bigfoot sightings seem to show as far as what these Sasquatch creatures look like. And they described his body as being covered with hair with long fur about 2 inches long. They said his head and a great portion of his forehead was covered with what they described as long, luxuriant, dark red tresses. So the prospectors were walking towards this creature, and then one of them decided to yell and lunge at it. Apparently he didn't want this Sasquatch or whatever it was getting near his gold. This was his territory and he was going to defend it by whatever means necessary. But this only aggravates the beast and starts beating its chest like a gorilla. It started approaching the prospectors, and then just stopped for a couple of minutes, continued beating its chest while staring down the prospectors, then took off into the woods. Now this one's real interesting. They got a great description of the creature with many of the same characteristics that are shared with Sasquatch of today, and it goes on that they went home and grabbed their guns, and at that moment the prospecting party became a hunting party. Apparently they searched the area and found a cave. Inside this cave was something of a nest that they surmised must have been the location in which this creature bedded down for the night and it could have provided a home for it. But then the last one I got here is real terrifying. We're going to close out with this one. Occurred in 1869 in Ohio. A man and his daughter were traveling in a carriage through the countryside. There's been stories of a large man-like creature roaming the area, covered in fur and being real tall. So as they were traveling through Gallia County, Ohio, this creature is said to have appeared out of the woods and bounded at the man, really trying to tear him up. The story makes it sound like he was pulling out some professional wrestling moves on this guy, pinning him real close and throwing him down on the ground. Then it moves on to him biting and scratching this guy, really trying to tear him to pieces and kill him and mess him up beyond all recognition. And it continued attacking him like a maniac until this guy's daughter mustered up the courage, all that she had, and she picked up a stone and hurled it at this beast. And apparently any minor amount of resistance was enough for this creature to take off into the woods, never to be seen again. The man survived and the two continued on their way. Now what was this thing? Was it a real hairy man that had it in for this guy? Was it some kind of gorilla that escaped from the zoo, or some sort of menagerie that was being maintained in the frontier country there in Ohio? Or was it maybe a Sasquatch? Ohio especially the Ohio River Valley is very well known for being a haven of Sasquatch sightings along the river there and up the tributaries in the surrounding valleys. And you know, maybe his descendants are still out there roaming the woods today. I don't know, but you know, all these stories sound real similar, and they all have many characteristics that are shared with your modern day Sasquatch. Maybe it was just some crazy guys running around with long hair and wearing furs in the forest, attacking people at random, or maybe it was Sasquatch. So anyway, I've got a link in the description of a compilation of many more of these sightings that have been put together that are maintained on a site called SasquatchCanada.com. Check it out, it's about 200 pages long and it's got many of these same kind of stories in it. And it'll keep you up at night, not just because it's got these terrifying stories, but it's just so dadgum long it'll take you a while to get through reading all of them. So anyway, that's it for this video. If y'all got anything you want to share, any sort of stories or video footage or pictures of Sasquatch, ghosts, UFOs, aliens, and the like, send them to wildbluetvstories@gmail.com. Check out our website and check out our Facebook page. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And with that said, Wild Blue out.